He has a very vast experience in his area. He worked as Senior Director, Corporate R&D, CDAC, and Head, GIST Research Labs. He is Country Manager, W3C India Office. He had overall experience of around more than 37 years in the area of mainframe, super mini systems, RAC, MAC, communications, natural language processing, and allied areas. He has been driving the R&D activity at CDAC has also nurtured language technology research activities as head of department GIST Research Labs. He had played a crucial role in standardization, tools and technology development and processing of research work at national and international level. Sir had also initiated and spearheaded several projects at national and international level in several areas like OCR, online handwritten character recognition, IDN email, Indian language research, Indian language search engine, sign language, speech technologies, large-scale localization framework, national language processing framework, and others. Sir has many awards to his credit. He has received Atmanam Award at the hands of Honorable Pranab Mukherjee, President of India, for scientific and technological development in the field of literature and tools for Hindi language. He also received NCPUL Award of Honorable IT Minister Shri Kapil Sibal for outstanding contributions to Urdu language development. Sir has also received award for outstanding contributions to his Marathi language at the hands of Honorable Shri Prithviraj Chauhan and Shri Ashok Chauhan. That's not all. He is member of various organizations. He is a member of Country Manager of W3C India Office, and he is a board member of the Rosetta Foundation Ireland. He has advisory role to international bodies such as ICANN, WCC, more specifically on IDN. He is also the chairman of Audio Video Standardization Group of BIS, and he is also a co-chair of new Brahmi General Panel ICANN. Sir has various patents, more than 4 patents and 100+ copyrights pertaining to language technology. Those are mentioned that his biodata as short biodata, but it appears that he has endless remarkable achievements to his credit. So now I would like to welcome Sir to this session. Welcome you, Sir, to our session. We can all be able to learn a lot from Sir today on the topic Internationalized Domain Names, a Research Perspective. Now I would like to invite Sir to continue with his talk. Welcome, Sir. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah.
You can start.
So shall I start?
Yes, sir. Sure.
Audible to everybody?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay, great. And the presentation is being seen by everybody?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very
Are you able to?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Are you able to see the presentation?
Yes, sir. We are able to.
Okay, great. Okay. So we will start. Good afternoon, everybody. First and foremost, thank you, Dr. Goel, for inviting me and trying to connect with people to share my thoughts, my knowledge in terms of some of the topics. I chose this particular topic, internationalized domain names, which I will go to demystify in a short while. It will be a combination of a little bit of technical details plus overall perspective. So that's why I chose the topic internationalized domain names, a research perspective. Prior to, okay, I don't know. I think my PPT got stuck up.
Sir, should I give you the right? Okay, it's working, sir. It's working.
Yeah, it's working now. Yeah. So I hope I was audible to everybody. Yeah, because it's a little bit blind here. Okay.
No, sir. Great. Everything is fine. No issues. Everything is fine. Your video, audio, and presentation is fine.
Perfect. Perfect. So prior to actually going to the subject matter, I am going to little bit talk about what is IDN and what is languages and so on and so forth. So actually, I am going to little bit cover on the language side. So basically, it is culminating into the internationalized domain name. So actually, this type of stuff I gave a presentation in SFO earlier, and the idea is that basically we should be able to reach the unreached people, which necessarily means that all our tools, technology should be available to the last mile, to the last person in the chain. That especially means that it should be available to the rural masses, wherein actually it is going to be impactful the most. So if you look at today, the challenge is to build an ecosystem, especially when I use the word ecosystem, it is an ICT, the legal framework, and everything put together for seamless access of a vast pool of information, uninterrupted, anytime, anywhere, and with various access devices and methods. So it sums up everything, which necessarily means that uninterrupted, which is 24/7, 365 days, anytime, at any time of the day, or even the night, for example, anywhere. So I might be anywhere around the earth or around the world, and with the various access devices. So there are variety of access devices which are available today, including the kiosk. Then you have got a mobile, then you have got a tablets, you have got a laptops, and so on and so forth. So we should be able to access. Now, in a country like India, with its rich cultural and linguistic diversity, so we have got a good linguistic and cultural diversity. This becomes more crucial and poses high-end research challenges. If you look at some of the countries, they probably have only one language. But while if you look at Indian side, we have got a challenge of 22 Indian languages. That two scheduled languages are there. So some of the facts, if you look at it from the Indian language perspective, so we Indian school teach 58 different languages. So that's something really great. That it's not all about teaching the scheduled 22 languages, but there are other languages which are being taught into the schools. Like in Maharashtra, if you look at it, some of the scripts like Moody, which is written for Marathi, is also being taught basically. So Indian schools teach 58 different languages. I don't know how many people are really aware, but the nation has newspaper in 87 languages. That's important. The radio programs in 71 languages. And the films are produced in 15 languages. So they are the most consumable items in terms of the films which are being produced in 15 languages. However, still Indian language contents are sparse in the new medium. When I use the word new medium, it is a web medium or it is a communication medium which we are talking about. And still we need to do a lot in terms of generating of contents in Indian languages. Another side of the whole what is called the statistics is that 95% of the population do not understand English. So everybody speaks their own mother tongue, and probably up to 10th class they don't have any option, but probably after 10th they have to probably look at English as one of the language. Then 36.5% out of 95% cannot read or write their own language. That is also a very serious concern, that they can only speak, but they cannot read and write. And these are the people where we, as an ICT, we should be able to reach to them. However, they can only speak. We require a technological solution to 36.5% of the population. And that's a very fair large population. And I think Dr. Goel is also working on something sign language. This is also which will cover the disability people basically into the mainstream. And as I said, 72% of the population stays in close to around 60,000 villages. So this is some of the facts which are the staggering facts in terms of Indian language conditions. So the multilingual diversity of India, some facts and figures. There are many languages basically, but the number of individual languages listed for India, I am not going to consider here the dialects which are being spoken, but the number of languages which are listed are totally 452. This figure gets really changed in between. Of those 438 are living languages. When I use the word living languages, they are being practiced, they are being used. Maybe some of the languages are having a very what is it called, that low number of people in terms of speaking, but definitely these 438 are the living languages around India. Indian languages has got majorly 4 families. If you look at it, one of the families is Indo-Aryan, another is the Dravidian, third is the Tibeto-Burman, and fourth is the Munda family. Okay, so these are the 4 families which we are having. And as you are aware that we have got a constitutionally recognized 22 Indian languages which are termed as a scheduled languages. Now if you look at Indian languages, they are complex in nature in related with the script. If you look at a Roman, it is very simple. You have got A to Z characters which are there and some of the digits and some special symbols which are there. However, if you come to the Indian languages, then we have got a complex script, but the language is simple, but the script is complex basically in writing or even to read or basically write. If you look at 22 scheduled languages, we will restrict our topic to 22 Indian languages. There are 2 major writing systems which are being used. One is the Perso-Arabic based writing system and another is the Brahmi based writing system. Okay, so when I use the word Perso-Arabic Brahmi system, it is written from right to left. So you write from the right to left, which are the languages like Sindhi, Urdu, Kashmiri, which are get written in the Perso-Arabic type of stuff. While the Brahmi based languages originates from they are written from left to right, and these are all totally 19 languages are there out of 22 which are being basically use the writing style of Brahmi based origin. Okay, so as I said to you, Perso-Arabic consists of Urdu, Kashmiri and Sindhi with the notional changes in Sindhi, while the remaining 19 languages use the 11 derivations of the Brahmi scripts. I will come to that. What are the different 11 derivations of the Brahmi scripts which are there? Okay. Now there are fair complexities. I am not going to use the word complexity, but the challenges that the relation of the script to language is not to one, but can be many to one and one to many, unlike Roman. So here in this case, generally what is happening is that language is what we speak and what we write is the script basically. So in such a case, basically we have got a one script, many languages, and many languages can be written into one script. That's how some of the things are happening. So some languages such as Santali and Sindhi use more than one script. So Santali is a language which uses Alchiki as well as a Devanagari as a script, while Sindhi also uses a Perso-Arabic, that is the Arabic style, plus Devanagari as a script to write Sindhi language. Conversely, Devanagari script is used for over 43 languages, which necessarily mean that out of 22, 8 languages get written using Devanagari as a script, which are like Sanskrit, Hindi, Marathi, Nepali, Konkani, Maithili, Dogri, Bodo, which are get written into using the Devanagari as a script. So this is the language family. So if you look at the Indo-Aryan, so in the Indo-Aryan family, you have got Assamese, Bengali, Dogri, Gujarati, Hindi, Kashmiri, Konkani, Maithili, Marathi, Nepali, Oriya, Punjabi, Sanskrit, Sindhi and Urdu. Where if you look at Tibeto-Burman, we have got a Bodo and Manipuri as the languages. And if you look at Dravidian, we have got a Kannada, Malayalam, Tamil, Telugu. And an Austroasiatic, that is a Munda family, we have got a Santali as one of the language which is been there. Now if you look at what are the scripts which are required to write these all, so as I said to you, one is the Perso-Arabic family and another is a Brahmi origin. So these are the Brahmi origin. One is you require Assamese, you require Bangla, you require Devanagari. As I said to you, Devanagari covers up 8 scheduled languages. Then Gujarati, Gurumukhi, okay, so Punjabi, Gurumukhi. Then we have got a Kannada, we have got a Malayalam, we have got a Oriya, we have got a Tamil, we have got a Telugu and we have got a Urdu. Actually Punjabi is also written using something called the Shahamukhi, okay.
Okay. Okay.
Actually, we did some work with Punjab University, basically for writing a converter from Devanagari to Shahamukhi and vice versa, along with Dr. G.S. Lehal. Okay, as I said to you, so these are the language nuances which are very, very important for the topic of IDN, because this basics, if you know, then you will be able to understand the internationalized domain names very well. So as I said, one script for many languages. So Devanagari used by official languages like Hindi, Marathi, Konkani, Nepali, Sanskrit, Sindhi, Dogri and Santali, and more than 30 languages. Eastern Brahmi base has been used like close to Bengali. So Assamese and Bangla are more or less the same script with some changes, little bit changes are there. So every language has got some changes over there. Then we have got a Bodo, we have got a Manipuri and Maithili. And then there is, as I was mentioning to you, Modi was primarily used by Marathi until 19th century and also by Urdu, Kannada, Gujarati, Hindi and Tamil. So Modi script was actually used in a Shivakalin era, and basically most of the documents you will be finding on the Peshwe-Kalin and Shivakalin era in Modi, written in Modi. So even the birth certificates, even all the property taxes and property rather documents, you will find it in Modi. Actually Modi is nothing but a cursive writing of cursive writing. So it's like a English cursive writing. So in Modi, generally what happens that there is no word breaking. It is written as a single line, and there is no Shiro Rekha, and you don't leave the pen at all. So you start writing Modi and you end up to the sentence, end of the sentence. So there are no word boundaries, and it's written together, and that's poses a different challenge in terms of recognizing the word. So sometimes you will have to read context basis. Similar way, many scripts for one languages. So if you look at Konkani, Konkani gets written using Roman, Devanagari, Kannada and Malayalam scripts. Okay, so Konkani, which is spoken in Goa, you will find it written in Roman, Devanagari, Kannada and Malayalam. And as I said to you, Santali earlier was written in Roman, now all Chiki, Devanagari, Oriya and Bangla scripts also. Bodo in Devanagari and Roman and Assamese. So these are the some of the facets of Indian languages, that one script, many languages, and many script, one languages. Am I okay with this, or shall I proceed? So if you look at some of the language nuances, you must be hearing about encodings. So earlier systems were 8-bit systems, and majorly talk about an 8-bit system. That's for ASCII encoding. So there was a 7-bit ASCII encoding as well as the 8-bit ASCII encoding. Okay, 7-bit is the ASCII encoding, which was been prevalent for 7-bit systems. And if you look at the Indian languages or the languages of the world, Now there is something called the universal encoding, which is called the Unicode, and which is a 32-bit encoding, basically, which subsumes all the languages of the world. I'm going to touch upon after in few of my slides. So if you look at the language nuances for Roman, which is used for English, it is a really one-to-one, what is so called the combination, one-to-one correspondence, which necessarily means that if I try to type character A, then the code of A gets stored into the system, and the glyph or the shape of the A is displayed onto the display device. So there is a one-to-one correspondence. If I write a word good, G-O-O-D, so which necessarily means that I write G, which gets entered into the system and gets encoded. So there is no change in that. So every key, every character has got a unique, what is so called the encoding, and accordingly you have got a definite glyph which is available for something called the display purposes. So there is a one-to-one correspondence in English when you use Roman as a script over there. But if you look at Indian languages, it is a fairly complex process, wherein, as I shown onto the screen, if you are able to see on the screen, so this is a word called the kitab. So if you look at keyword, it is formed by two characters. It is not a one character, though it is we call this as a syllable, okay, or akshara. So this is made of two characters. One is a ka and another e matra. So these are two characters put into one. If you look at Unicode, then you will find these are two characters and not a single character. And this is something called a combination logic, which is being used at a backend to produce this type of a combination over there. So generally, when you want to type a kitab onto the system, obviously I will expect here that the system is having it is enabled for typing Indian languages and display Indian languages. So having done that, I start typing Indian languages. So it also depends upon which type of keyboard you are going to use. But let us keep it at the next portion of the slide. So I start typing kitab. So there are few ways to type it. Indian languages are by nature phonetic in nature, which necessarily means that when we are taught to pronounce kitab, the pronunciation of the comes the first, E comes the later on, K comes the third, A comes the letter, and B. So this is how we generally pronounce kitab. So first pronunciation K comes, and then the E matra comes. Unlike in the typewriter keyboard, you have to type E matra first, then the K, then the T, then the A, then the B. But this was not been taught to us like that, because of the technological issues. At that time it was a mechanical typewriter, and hence one has to enter in the fashion which is being shown onto the screen. First the first the E matra, then the K, then the T, then the A, then the B. But if you look at the phonetics of Indian languages, then we write kitab. So I enter K first, then the E matra next, then the T next, then the A next, and then the B next. Okay, so this is how the internally in a computer the codes are being stored. So this is 915, 93F, 924, 93E, 92C. So these codes are Unicode characters which are being stored into the system. So we have got now one-to-one correspondence here. So these are the internal code values. But now this is the display part. So this was, as I said to you, this is the user input from the keyboard, like the K, E, T, A, and B. And this is how it is being stored into the system. This is the internal storage. So it is the internal storage is like this. Then how it is going to display like this? Actually, we want a display that the E matra should come first, okay, so that it appears in a so-called the sequence, a proper sequence. So this is something called the reordering. So it is something called the reordering which will be done. So as you can see, one second. As you can see, this is the reordering. So it is the K, E matra, T, A, and B. So these are the codes of which have been coming, and then the reordering is being done. Firstly the E matra comes, then the K, then the T, then the A, then the B. So this is how and this is nothing but the fonts. So this what you see are the different variations in the font. So these are styles, and this is nothing to do with the basically internal storage, because basically you can have a different style of a font, but it should get associated with this storage key which is there. So this is how one can have different types of fonts coming onto the screen. I hope this aspect is clear to everybody. Now in terms of Indian languages, there is one more challenge, that you generate a composed character which is ksha. Actually, this is combination of three characters rather, ka, halanta, sha, which produces a totally different glyph. So it is not necessarily like English that you press G and you get a shape of G onto the system. Here in this case, what happens? The total shape change gets changed. So you inputted ka and halanta and sha, and you will get a totally different shape. Now, how this is possible? This is possible just because of some of the what is called the composition logic, which are pre-built now into the systems, especially into the fonts. So there is, as I said to you, there is no one-to-one correspondence. A totally different shape is being rendered at point of time. Okay. Now, if you come up further nuances of Indian languages, as I said to you, apart from the inputting challenges, one is a syllable formation. So this is the word which is written as a Brahma. So this Bra is written as Ba, Halanta, Ra. So it will create this type of a shape. Ma, it is going to have, actually going to have Ha plus Halanta, Ma, and because Ma is a half shape, so you have to have a Halanta over there. Ha is a half shape rather, and you have to have the Ma and then the Amatra. And we talked about the reordering levels. And there are something different inputting mechanisms which are today available. I will explain that in a moment. Okay. And you have got an alternate form. So if you look at the different writing styles, so Anna, this is also a valid, what is so called the spelling of Anna means food in Hindi or Marathi. So Anna. So A plus Na plus Halanta Na. So it is going to produce a totally different shape altogether. Now, who controls this shape? How it is to be displayed, that will come later on. Now this is a halanta na. So which necessarily means that this is the explicit halanta which we would like to display, and hence we have got a plus na plus halanta na. And there is another way that I need to have a half na plus full na, and which has been written as a na plus the halanta, and there is an invisible character which is called the zero with joiner, which necessarily means that when the na is half, actually you need to join the next na like this. So which is a invisible character which is not seen basically onto the screen at all. So it is a zero with joiner, and there is something called the zero with non-joiner. So there is a zero with joiner which has been used over here. Now there is another word which is called the bit 2, which is written another combination of B and E matra, then ta halanta hu. So this is how the bit 2 word is being written. But here the bit 2, this word and this word are both are same. Okay. If you look at the bit 2, which is written with the vertical conjunct, and this is something called the horizontal conjunct, and both are permissible. So there has to be some facility into the system to select either of the vertical conjunct or the horizontal conjunct in regards with the display purposes. Okay. So I will come back to this particular point later on. So what I am trying to say, that when we talk about the topic of internationalized domain names, I think these are going to be very, very important. So I hope you understand this a little bit better, so you will be able to appreciate what the next section of IDN is going to be covering up. Another part is that ta halanta tha. So again it is written as, so this is an explicit halanta. So as far as the grammar rules are concerned, the script grammar rules are concerned, ta doesn't become half over here. So ta halant, so this is written as an explicit halant. So Hindi language has got its own so-called the grammar rule, script grammar rule. Punjabi also has got their own script grammar rule. I am going to touch upon that in a moment. Then these are some of the another combinations like da halant da, da halant da, ta halant tha, da halant da, and da halant da. Okay, so these are some of the things which are there. Apart from the alternate forms, we have got something called the alternate spelling. So this may be possible also in, I don't know, I don't have an example right now at Punjabi, but probably at the discussion sake we can take a Punjabi example also. And these are the alternate spellings. So Hindi is being written with bindi. Okay, so Hindi is written with bindi, like ha, e matra, bindi, the and e matra. The alternate spelling, which is also valid writing, which is na halanda. So it is written as a na halanda, but both the shapes are totally different. Here the Hindi is different, but the phonetically both are same, and they are both valid equivalents. Same thing happens with the tasavir. So tasavir is written as tasa, wa, and e matra and ra, and while Tasveer is basically sa halanta wa, and it combines basically to give a tasveer. So both are valid combinations. So as I was explaining to you, there are certain language nuances. One is at the syllable formation level, another is at the reordering level, third is the alternate forms of the spellings, and then there is a alternate forms rather, and there is the alternate spellings which are posing a little bit of a challenge in regards with the implementation of domain names. Now you consider another facet which is very, very crucial, but today probably it may not be that relevant, but yes, basically today the undoubted medium of inputting has become the keyboard, and then you have got now the mobiles are available, then you have got speech technologies available, and so on and so forth. But in early days we have got a typewriter keyboard, which was a mechanical typewriter. So there is a typewriter keyboard, there is an inscript keyboard, there is a phonetic English. So when we talk about a typewriter keyboard, actually it behaves on the fact that the way you see, the way you type. So it goes graphically, which necessarily means that I have given an example of kitab to you earlier. So in typewriter, either it is a Godrej or Remington, they do have a different standards basically. So the keys are at a different places. I'm not going to touch upon that. But yes, the typewriter keyboards are there, wherein you have to first type the way you see, the way you type, which necessarily means that you type the E matra first, then the K, then the T, then the A, then the B. So this is the sequence in which you write using a typewriter keyboard, because you cannot go back into the typewriter, or you don't have a composition logic into the typewriter. So now coming to the something called the phonetic English, what does it mean? So if I want to input Indian language, then mostly people start writing in phonetic English. Mera Bharat Mahan. So MERA, BHARAT, MAHAN, Mahan. So there are also certain standards available into the writing part of the phonetic equivalence. I will not touch that part right now. So, but there is a phonetic English way of inputting mechanism. Then there is a third way, which is the standardized way of inputting, which is called the inscript keyboard, which bears on the fact that the way you speak, the way you type. So that is very, very important in Indian languages, because in the school colleges, we have been taught basically the way you speak, basically the way you write. So you try this also at home, and you will find that while writing also, the way you write, the way you speak, the way you write. So the inscript keyboard behaves on the fact that the way you speak, the way you write, which necessarily means that if you want to type a word kitab, then you type a word first K, then the E matra, then the T, then the A, then the B matra. So these are all the language nuances which are very, very important to understand before we go to the section of internationalized domain name. Now this is another complexity. This is the complexity of the shapes. So as I was explaining that Indian languages are complex in nature in terms of the fonts. So if you look at English, you will generally find a very linear composition which is going to happen. That if again I take a word good, so good will have a capital G, a small g, and maybe a cursive G, and so on and so forth. But then finally at the end of the day, they are written in a linear fashion. So there is no composition, there is no mixing of characters, and so on and so forth. But here in this case, if you look at it, you have got a mixing, and then there is a composition, and you get a totally different shape. And this is how on the font side, if you look at it, there is a X height, there is a ascender, there is called the descender. So X, suppose kitab is there, or other kru shabd is there, then a K is there as a X height, and the ru is there at the bottom, which is called the descender, and there is a matra on top of it, so that is called the ascender. So our fonts are basically 3-tier or multiple tier, 4-tier fonts are there, which are complex in nature to render also. Thanks to the systems, today you don't have to worry about those. But let me touch upon a point of something called the Urdu, which is have got a special mention. So Urdu is generally written in 2 different scripts, and in the India, the most prevalent script is Nastaliq, which is the complex thing, which is a very highly calligraphic script basically. So Nask is a script which is mostly tending toward the Arabic script. So if you look at an Arabic script, it has been written onto a virtual line. So you can see a virtual base line which is there, on which the characters are being written, and they don't move mostly vertical, they move mostly horizontal. So this is a Nask style of writing. While if you look at the Nastaliq, actually it is a very cursive writing, and then the shift also happens. So as you start typing out, basically apart from shifting horizontally, it starts shifting vertically also, and you see the beauty of the script basically. So it's a very beautiful script, but it is a very complex to render, and thanks to the systems today that these are already, now this you can enter this complex script over there. So these are the two differences into the NUSC and Nastaliq script basically. Sir, I'm audible and it's going on perfect?
Yes, sir, you are audible correctly.
Okay, yes, great. Because I don't get any feedback, so I generally it is good that I get some feedback. Okay.
It's good, sir. Yeah,
okay. Now, as I was explaining, when the conjunct comes into the when the conjunct comes into the picture, resulting glyph shift increases manifold. So, as I was explaining to you, that you input something and you actually display something else. So, ka halanta sha is a classic example wherein you inputted ka, you inputted halanta, you inputted sha, and final rendering which has happened is the sha, which is a totally different shape. Okay. So, these are some of the challenges involved into the Indian language scripts. I am going to only talk about script and not the language complexities. We will look at the language complexity someday or the other. But at this moment of time, since we are touching the subject of internationalized domain names, we are going to restrict up to only the script level. So let us come to the so-called internationalized domain name. So prior to going to the internationalized domain name, I was finding bit thing that I should explain to you Indian languages first, the complexities of the Indian languages, the writing styles, what are the different languages which are there, and what are the scheduled languages, and what are the scripts being used to render and the fonts complexity. So I hope those points are being well appreciated and well taken up. Okay, and then there is, as I said to you, there is a storage which is either the ASCII or Unicode. But nowadays, to have a internationalization of your software, you should be able to use, and you should use Unicode as a default as an encoding mechanism. So unless otherwise, because what is going to happen if you don't use Unicode, then your software or an application is not going to be available globally, and even there are other associated issues which are going to pop up, because you will be going to create a legacy data. Now coming to the domain names, so you must be today looking at the domains, let us say Punjab University.in or punjabiuniversity.edu, something of that sort. So these were something called the written in Roman, and these are called the ASCII domain names, and ASCII domain names or simply domain names. And as you can see on the screen, I have written www.cdac.in. So it is a domain name. Okay, so it is called the domain name. So www stands for a universal locator. So these are three parts of it. So each been separated by a dot. Each part is called the label. So www.cdac.in. So it has got two dots. So it has got three labels. Then we have got a universal locator. The universal locator can become www, which is a World Wide Web protocol, or which is a mail protocol, or FTP, a file transfer protocol. So that is a universal locator at this particular point of time. Then we have got a subdomain which is called the CDAC. CDAC becomes a subdomain. I will come to that in a moment. How C is a subdomain. Then there is something called the .in. If you notice that .in comes like a top level domain, and the top level domain earlier were restrictive. They were 18 numbers. They were something .com, .org, .res, .in, and so on, .res, and so on and so forth. .in came separately. .in is something a top level domain, and I will demystify between what is something called the GTLDs, CCLDs in a short while. Okay, so what you see, CDAC.in, .in stands for a country level top level domain. So this is called the country level top level domain. Are you able to see this portion? Okay. So CDAC.in, so this is the country level top level domain. .in stands for India, and that is an ASCII domain name. Similarly, .fr stands for France, then .cn stands for China, and so on and so forth. So this is how the country level top level domains are there. While these domain names which are there, like .com, then .org, .net, .mil, so these all domain names are something called the generic top level domain names are there. Okay, generic, and I will come to that how many generic top level domains one can have. So .in is a domain name which is called a country level top level domain, and this is written in ASCII. So what is the domain name? It is an identification label that defines a realm of administrative autonomy, authority or control in the internet. So when I type www.cdac.in, it is going to basically attach to a singular address only. It cannot fetch the data from multiple places. So it is a basically autonomy which has been given to you, authority being given to you, and you have got a total control. If you are a website owner, you have got a total control on www.cdac.in. So www.cdac.in will go only to CDAC site and not any other site. The hierarchy of the domain descends from right to left to the left label in the name. As I explained to you, that .in is the top level domain, which is currently called as CCTLD in our case right now in the example, and then CDAC.in, CDAC becomes the subdomain, and www becomes the universal locator. Now, if you look at the domain names, these domain names, what characters they use basically. So, if you notice, these are ASCII domain names, specifically ASCII. So, it is using only few characters out of the ASCII, which is a LDH. So, the ASCII domain name actually uses LDH, so which is a letter, digits and hyphen. So if you notice www.cdac.in, you will find you are using W letter, C letter, D, A letter, rather in, I and N. So these are the letters which we are using into the ASCII, and there is a digit, okay, there is a hyphen only, and then there is a dot also, which is separates out the basically domain names, the labels basically. And these are being used only from the 7-bit ASCII repository and not the 8-bit, because 8-bit was designed, developed for the IBM PC, basically wherein on the upper half of the ASCII, that is if you look at a ASCII 8-bit, then it gets divided into two parts. One is the 7-bit, which gives you 128 lower part and 128 upper part. The upper part was being used by the IBM PC for some special characters and line drawing characters and so on and so forth. And one can make use of that for other purposes also, proprietary purposes also, provided you have got a proper encoding being done over there. So in case of ISKI, the standard which CDAC has developed and which has been now a part of the Unicode, ISKI stands for the Indian Standard Code for Information Interchange. Similar like ASCII, ASCII stands for the American Standard Code for Information Interchange. Similarly, ISKI stands for Indian Standard Code for Information Interchange. This was being developed to ensure that the Indian languages are being encoded properly, and in this case there is something called the you can use the upper half of the characters, that is ASCII, and map all Indian characters into that, and so that the ISKI was designed, developed keeping into the mind that English the Roman should coexist. So that was an idea to develop the ISKI. Now ISKI has become into the Hall of Fame, and we have got a Unicode. The Unicode actually supports all the languages of the world, and the huge repository is there. You can go to unicode.org and try to get updated yourself and try to look at the code pages for our own languages. And there are certain languages already encoded, Indian languages, which are not part of the scheduled languages, but there is languages like Nandanagari, Silotanagari, Lepcha. These are the languages already been Modi. These are the languages which are already been encoded into the Unicode, but those are not out of the scheduled languages currently. So these domain names currently was using till the time the IDN came up, the domain name was using ASCII encoding. So this is called the American Standard Code for Information Interchange. 7-bit encoding was being used, and as I explained to you, only LDH was being used. Okay, so you don't have a question mark into the ASCII domain name, or you don't have any special symbol into the domain name. You don't have a rupee symbol into the domain name. It is just a LDH, which is called the letter, digit and hyphen are being used to represent the ASCII domain name. Now coming to the internationalized domain name. Now the things have changed basically. So we have got a Unicode now. So Unicode is a, as I said to you, is a 32-bit encoding which encodes all the scripts of the world, basically all the scripts of the world, and even new are getting added to that. And it is even the emojis are there, even the musical signs are there, so many things are there into the so-called Unicode repository. Okay, that you can actually go to the unicode.org and just have a look at for yourself to update on this particular matter. So the IDN, what is IDN? IDN is something called the internationalized domain name. When I use the word internationalized, which necessarily means that it supports multiple languages, or you can write the domain name now in your own language. As I give an example to you, on the right side of the screen, you can say CDAC.Bharat. So www is the protocol basically, which is the universal locator, while CDAC.Bharat is a internationalized domain name. So now one can type CDAC.Bharat in the Devanagari and get www.cdac.bharat as a website. Similar way for other languages. Similar way if you look at Punjabi here, so you can get Punjabi domain name also. So there are Arabic, there is a Chinese, there is a Greek, there is a Hebrew, there is a Japanese, the Korean, Russian, Spanish, and then everything basically under the umbrella. So one can have multilingual domain names. So now what it contains, unlike the so-called a similar rule which has been followed over here also, like ASCII domain names. So here IDN domain name contains the character from the Unicode character repository. So which means that it can pick up any character from the Unicode repository, which is the 32-bit, and along with that letter, digit, hyphen, same thing, same like ASCII, you got the same thing like the letter, digit and hyphen, but in this case the letters come from a whole bunch of Unicode repository, okay, and including Latin characters like the A to Z, which are case ignored, and so also ignored, also include A to Z, okay, digits and hyphen. So this is how the IDN consists of. So IDN is nothing but a multilingual domain name using the Unicode character repository with a letter, digit and hyphen as a basic rule. So I hope this is understood clearly, right? So this is some of the examples of the multilingual domain names, also referred to like bharatbhasha.bharat, bharatbhasha.com, bharatbhasha.bharat in Gujarati, and I think I cannot read this. What is that? I think okay, .bharat. Okay, so this really means that the first case is a case of IDN in Hindi. So the subdomain as well as the top level domain is both internationalized, which necessarily means that .Bharat is a country code top level domain, which we recently got it, rather recently in the sense 5-6 years back we got the .Bharat, and in other languages also we got. So the first example is internationalized, both the labels, the subdomain as well as the top level domain, both are internationalized. In the second example, bharatbhasha.com, the subdomain is IDN, while the .com is an ASCII domain. So this is also permissible, okay. And bharatbhasha.bharat, again the case of IDN .IDN in Gujarati, and the last case was, as I explained, it is a Punjabi IDN.IDN in Punjabi. So these are called internationalized domain names. Now generally there is an issue over here that the domain names were existing, pre-existing when the communication and when the internet started, okay. So as I said, it was using only ASCII, what is called the encoding, and all the domain name softwares which are there, or the domain name resolution systems are worldwide are there, they are based on ASCII, and it would have taken a huge amount of money and huge amount of efforts to convert all these domain name systems which should support internationalized domain names, and hence there was a call which was being taken that we should not disturb the DNS systems or DNS software, let it run as it is. However, we will convert a Unicode domain name into something called the Puny code. So this is the RFC 3492, which is called the Puny code, and generally Puny code is nothing but a ASCII equivalent, okay. So it converts, it's a ASCII encoding, so it converts the Unicode into a Puny code, and this is a very unique conversion basically. So it is a lossless and bidirectional and 100% what they call faithful. So what is going what happened in this case is that somebody enters a domain name, like a IDN domain name, like on the top what you see over here, you enter the domain name .com, and the browser is there. Most of the browsers, rather almost all the browsers today, convert this particular internationalized domain name into an ASCII domain name, which you really don't sometimes see that conversion, but it internally converts into something called the ASCII compatible encoding, which is a 7-bit encoding, and your domain name now, multilingual domain name, that's the Indian domain name, gets converted like this. Okay, this is a very unique encoding which uses again LDH alone. So it doesn't use now the so-called 16-bit repository or 32-bit repository. Of the Unicode. So it is the extent. So you forget about www. So generally the conversion from so-called the IDN Unicode to Puny code. This, if you notice these characters, these are common, extend dash dash, and now the whole stuff is converted like this. So in the registry entry, you will find extend hyphen this particular code .com as an equivalent for the internationalized domain name. Okay, so the resolution of the domain name happens on these ASCII characters. So as I said to you, it is a Puny code conversion. The user enters the internationalized domain name with Unicode characters, but internally it gets converted into an ASCII characters, which is ASCII encoding like this. So if you look at a paid as a paid.com or paid.bharat or something of the sort, the paid gets converted into extend hyphen hyphen, and this is the code. Okay, where this is represented as a paid. Same thing, IE is represented as extend dash dash, and this is the code. So which means that this is a very lossless what is called the transposition from Unicode to Punicode and vice versa. Okay, I hope this is very clear to people, right? Coming to a very interesting topic in this case is that what is so great about this? Why there is so what is challenging under the internationalized domain names, or even the domain names for that matter. So over a couple of slides, I will try to demystify what are the challenges and how it has been handled and so on and so forth. So if you notice early days, very long back story was there. I am taking the same example everywhere, and this is called something called the phishing. So you must be knowing of phishing attack which has happened. Generally the hackers try to use this. So this is you get a mail from or you get a mail from somebody, and it has been written over there that click here. We are actually verifying your accounts, and you click on that without looking at whether it is a phished one or whether it is a basically a proper URL. So a recommendation would be, don't click any what is called the link just blindly. Actually, you should retype that. This is the one suggestion which is coming up. So if you look at this PayPal, earlier there was a phishing attack which happened through the PayPal. So they started giving you a mail from service@paypal.com, and then people started revealing their account and so on and so forth, and everything, all the phishing started happening over there. But actually what was problem is that at a smaller point size, the L and 1 look similar. Okay, at a smaller point size, the L and 1 look similar into the address bar, and hence people don't get noticed that the mail didn't originate from the service at PayPal, because the PayPal spelling is paypal.com. But while somebody fished that and he has sent a mail at a service at paypa1.com, and you revealed your whole accounts and so on. So this is a phished website. The phishing is typically carried out by email spoofing or instant messaging, and it often directs user to enter details at a fake website whose look and feel are almost identical to the legitimate one. So basically one need to definitely look at this phishing attacks, and this is nothing called that. Basically it's a homograph. So I will demystify what is meant by homograph and homophone in this aspect. So this is a homograph attack, which necessarily means that the character which was being used in phishing was a confusingly similar character. Okay, so now you understand the nuances of when we move to the multilingual domain names. Then we'll have to look at the aspect of how to reduce this confusingly similar characters and avoid the possible phishing attack. So this was the actually original website, which is the paypal.com, while this is the something called the phished website, and it might be a what is phishing? So it is likely a possibility of homograph or a homophone attack. So I give an example to you that Hindi is written in two different ways. Okay, na halanda and just with bindi. So now in such a case, what should be the call of the internationalized domain name? I will come to that in a moment. Okay. So I hope this is very clear in terms of why the international domains are a bit complex, and what type of solutions one require to avoid the phishing attacks, or at least make user aware that there is this is not an original website, but this is something called the phish website, because people can use something called a confusingly similar character. Okay. So now actually I covered up the Indian languages. Basically similar challenges would have been in Chinese or any other language of the world. Basically we have got more challenges because we have got 22 Indian languages, and we fought through the ICANN to get basically our government actually was very kind enough to go to ICANN. ICANN was also very kind enough. Earlier policy was that one language, one country, one language, actually domain name. But then they realized that no, in a country like India, we can have multiple languages basically, and hence we were able to get the top level domain, the country code top level domain in multiple languages, multiple scripts like .bharat in Devanagari, .bharat in Punjabi, then Bharatam in Sanskrit, .bharat in Bodo, and I will come to Tamil as a special case, India for Tamil, and so on and so forth. So this is how we were being able to get all the domain names for all the 22 Indian languages. Okay, that is the top level. So I can delegated this CTLD to India for all the 22 Indian languages. And then the challenge again I was mentioning to you about the alternate scripts. What is going to happen with the alternate scripts? Are you going to also try to get the domain names for the alternate scripts? So that we will discuss in a few moments of another slides basically which are there. So in order to basically avoid the phishing attack and has to have a very stable and secured and a singular mapping URL, then I think it was very, very important to work on something called the internationalized domain name policy, which we started working on the domain name policy in the year almost 2006, prior to that also. Okay, and our study was very, very crucial because the first meeting which I attended in SFO, we explained to them the complexities of Indian languages, the writing style complexities, and I think that was a key driving point for all the languages of the world. And lot of what is so called the programs were started because of the complexities which were being faced into the Indian languages. So if you are able to solve Indian language IDN issues, then I think most of the languages of the world are already been taken care of. Okay, so the IDN policy, so we laid out an IDN policy for the Indian languages. So generic rules in compliance with the .in registry. So you are aware that .in is being given by NICSI. So NICSI is the registry in India which gives you a domain name under .in. You got something like, I think I'm not fully concerned, but maybe something 70 plus domain registrars will be there around the world who are giving .in domain names, domain names. So like GoDaddy is one of the registrar. Now they also become trying to apply for the registry. So generic rules in compliance with the .in registry, rules specific to IDN in Indian languages. So now we have a policy. One is that a generic rules in compliance with the fully existing .in registry, because we cannot be too off onto the policy, because otherwise .in registry will have to look at that. So rules specific IDN in Indian languages. Then ABNF formalism and language specific restriction rules to ensure a well-formed programming travel. I think I can give you a small example that the matra, on the Devanagari, it looks like matra. It confusingly similar with the Urdu alif. Look similar, and then there are challenges over there. Okay, here in this case. So that's why we have worked out something called the ABNF, which is called the Augmented Becker-Snur Formalism and Language Specific Restriction Rules. I will come to language specific restriction rules in order to get a domain name and to ensure it is a well-formed Brahmi syllable, which necessarily means that if you I don't know how many people have gone to the ISKI document, but you can search onto the net, try to get a hold of the ISKI document, and on the page number 11, our syllable Akshara formation rules are been actually very crisply given. So how the Akshar is formed basically, so it's a rule. So it is a well-formed Brahmi syllable, so you can have a look at that. I'm anyway going to cover in my slides over there. Language tables, which will ensure that only those characters pertinent within a given language are used. Now, which necessarily means that if you look at a Devanagari code page, there are certain what is called the special symbols which are being added into the Devanagari character repository. Okay, so Om is there, and another Udatta, Anudatta, this type of a symbols are there. So we are taking a call on that we should not permit all the characters from the language table. So if you look at 22 Indian languages, if you look at a Devanagari page, code page of Unicode, as I said to you, 8 languages are being written using Devanagari as a code page. So for Marathi, we have, let us take Hindi. Hindi we have got a L, while Marathi we have got a L. Okay, so for Hindi we have dropped down the L, while Marathi we have kept it. So I am going to show you some of these examples in my coming slides. So therein the language table comes handy. So one is the generic rules in compliance with .in registry. Second is the rules specific to the IDN in Indian languages. Third is the ABNF, which is called the Augmented Becker-Snur Formalism, which is actually going hand with the Brahmi syllable formation rules plus language rules. Language tables, which will ensure that only those characters pertinent within a given language are used, and a variant table to reduce the risk of spoofing and phishing. So we are building a variant table also, that I am going to show you to what is the variant table for you. Okay, so if you look at the IDN policy now, just like your what is called the ASCII domain name policy, we have made an IDN policy which is called the Internationalized domain name policy. So what we suggest in that case, and this policy is fully operational, one is only letters like the character from the character repository, with few exceptions. As I said to you, no special symbols are there to be used. Letters, digits, hyphen will be allowed in the domain name, and names cannot begin with or end with hyphens. So if you want to take a domain name like Hindi.Bharat, you cannot have a hyphen initially or hyphen at the end of the Hindi to take the domain name. So this is only letters, digits and hyphen will be allowed in the domain name, and names cannot begin or end with hyphens. Then mixing of two scripts will not be permitted at all. So if you want to mix up, let us say Urdu plus Devanagari, that is not allowed, or Urdu plus Marathi or Urdu plus Hindi, it is not allowed, just because I give an example to you that matra in Marathi or matra in Devanagari looks very confusingly similar to alif in Urdu, and that's why we have taken a call not to mix two different scripts. I got some more examples, so you will be able to appreciate more when you see the examples. But just have a look at it, that this is an IDN policy which has been made. So only letters, digits, hyphens will be allowed in the domain names, and names cannot begin or end with hyphens. Mixing of two scripts will not be permitted, and use of zero with joiner and zero with non-joiner will not be allowed, because these two, zero with joiner and non-joiner, are not a visible characters actually. They are a control type characters, so they are not visible onto the screen unless otherwise you go to the storage, you try to use Babel pad and try to look at the what is been written. Then you will be able to see that, okay, oh, there is a zero with joiner and zero with, so this is dangerous. These zero with joiners and non-joiners are dangerous just because of the fact that they are not visible to the end user, not visible to the person who is actually visiting the website. Then language numerals and punctuations will not be allowed. So we don't allow language numerals, which necessarily mean that equivalence of 0, 1, 2 is not allowed for Indian languages, and punctuation markers are also not been allowed. and special symbols or space markers will not be allowed. So like as I explained to you, Udatta, Anudatta, which are used for Sanskrit, will not be basically Lokik Sanskrit, which are not be allowed into that. So this is a fairly not too restrictive, but try to protect the phishing attack and try to make the domain names more robust. Idea is that they have to be more secure and they have to be more robust. Actually, they should not represent two different states over here, and that's why this IDN policy is very, very important. And one need to go through this IDN policy very critically. Actually, this becomes a part of our application programming interfaces, APIs, which are being given into the registry for registering the domain names. I will come to that in a short while. IDN policy for Indian languages. So this was generally at the top level, which I explained to you. IDN policy for Indian languages, in its broad outline, the policy comprises of following. One is generic rules in compliance with the .in registry, which I explained to you, and rules specific to IDN in Indian languages. So which I am going to explain to you. What are the rules specific to IDN in Indian languages? And what are the directive principles, the ABNF formalism and language specific restriction rules to ensure a well-formed Brahmi syllable. So we will restrict the formation of the domain name using the Brahmi syllable formation rule. And that is very, very critical and very, very important. And then the variant tables to reduce the risk of spoofing and phishing, and language tables which will ensure that only those characters pertinent within a given language are being used. I hope it is very, very, very clear to you people that this is the policy which is a top level policy which has been applicable to Indian languages as well as the languages of the world. Okay, so another rule is that two types of rules are built into the policy: generic policy rules which are inherited from .in. So as I explained to you, whatever .in rules were there, we have just inherited that and made something on top of that. So that's an idea. So broadly, the .in actually permitted letter, digit and hyphen alone permitted. So same thing we will prolong. Same thing we will use, that only letter, digit and hyphen will be permitted. The .in policy also states that single digits like 1, 2, 3, 4 and a combination of two digits will not be allowed as per the .in registry, which means that nobody can take a CDAC to .in because that is not allowed, or CDAC 1, it's not allowed for the .in. And same thing we followed. You will understand in a moment why we have said this, because if we permit this type of a combination, then it may be difficult that somebody types LLLLL 100 times, or somebody will type LLL 99 times and try to register for two different domain names, and which is going to be a disaster because the end user will not be able to calculate or count those type of characters which are there. Okay, so that's just a hypothetical case which I have presented to you. No two hyphens will be allowed. So no two hyphens will be allowed together, and an hyphen shall not occur either at the beginning or at the end of the. So we picked up the policy from .in as a generic one. Now policy which are related to the internationalized domain name, especially targeting toward the Indian languages. So code set, what code set we are going to use? So as I said to you, we are going to use the code set of Unicode only, because it has to be complied with all the international rules and regulations. So we are going to, so your IDN resides on, basically rides on Unicode. Okay, the layout shall be latest Unicode compliant. In anticipation, the same been implemented by ICANN. Because the Unicode version also gets changed, the time which we worked on that, it was 5.2, and now you have got a Unicode version 13, and wherein a lot of characters got added. But I don't think there was any major change in terms of from 5.2 to 13 in terms of the characters which we recommended to use into the internationalized domain names. Okay, this will also permit the inclusion of Chillu characters in Malayalam, which is the latest addition to the Unicode with the regard with the latest. Actually, it was done earlier. Eventual upgradation may be visualized as and when Unicode adds new characters. But I don't think now any base character is missing from the Indian languages. That was been actually addressed much more earlier, except for the fact that in between for writing Sindhi using Devanagari, some additional characters were being encoded. But yes, that was being taken care into the policy of the internationalized domain names. So one, as I said to you, code set, we are going to use the code set Unicode. Secondly, script and language. So we are going to differentiation of script and languages. Now this is very, very critical and important, because what a person sees on the screen is a script. Okay. So let us say, take an example of CDAC.Bharat, written in Devanagari. Okay. It doesn't distinguish between whether it is written in Marathi or Hindi, because if you write in Hindi CDAC.Bharat and if you write in Marathi CDAC.Bharat, they are going to look same. So there is no difference in terms of some of the languages or some of the scripts. There is absolutely no difference in terms of script and languages. Okay. So differentiation of script and languages. So that is another challenge. A major decision taken is that script and languages will be differentiated at a registrar level and not at the user level. However, the user will be provided the keyboard which will allow him to enter IDN in the language of his choice. Although this does not affect languages like Gujarati or Tamil, because Gujarati has got its own script, Tamil has got its own script, while Hindi uses Devanagari script, Marathi uses the Devanagari script, and other languages use the Sanskrit uses the Devanagari script. Therein the problem lies. While in other cases, like where there is a one-to-one what is called the correspondence, like one script, one language, like Gujarati is a language, Gujarati also has a script. At that point of time, you don't have such issues. But where there are like a Devanagari, then you will have an issue wherein the user has to provide a keyboard. But at a registrar level, there is no differentiation between a script and language. Okay, so this is well explained now to you. Within the Brahmi syllable, the following are permissible and non-permissible entities. So if you look at a Brahmi syllable formation, so I again reiterate that you should go to the ISKI document and download that and look at the page number 11 where it talks about the Brahmi syllable. So all these 19 languages which are there, which are originated from Brahmi, adheres to the Brahmi syllable composition rules basically. So permissible entities are letter, hyphen, digit shall be the only entities permitted. Hyphen and digit shall belong to the Latin set. So we don't have actually hyphens and this. We should take it from the Latin set. This is very, very important. So that is permissible. So you can actually mix one Indian language and the Latin set. Okay, and you cannot mix up two Indian languages together. Okay, I will come to that separately. Hyphen and digits shall belong to the Latin set. Then digits which are there like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up to 10 will be of the Latin set and not of Indian languages. Letters will be of language in the question. So we can use all this stuff we can use basically of the Kulkarni, all the things you can use of the letters. Only Tamil characters should be permissible as an example. Okay, it's not like that. Even applies to Punjabi, applies for Marathi, applies for everything. So only that specific language characters will be permissible within a given domain in Tamil language. So suppose if you have got that domain name in Tamil language, only Tamil language characters will be permitted and no other language characters will be permitted within that, right? Both the middle level domain and top level domain shall be Indian language compliant, 100% Indian language compliant. So the middle level domain and top level domain should be 100% compliant. So it is like CDAC.Bharat, or I give an example, www.bharatbhasha.bharat will be considered as a valid URL. Okay. Is it going well or?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, great.
We are okay.
Good. Okay. So what are not permissible things? One is a code page mixing is not permissible, as I explained to you. So if you look at this example, there is a software. Okay, soft is written in Devanagari, and where is written in Gujarati. So this is not allowed. Same thing, Hindi, which is written in Devanagari and in Roman is not permissible. So this mixing is, so no code mixing, page mixing is allowed. So if you are onto the Devanagari code page, then you only use the Devanagari encoding. Digits in Indian languages will not be permitted. So these are not permitted at all. Okay. Punctuation marks like danda, double danda, which are generally used in Hindi, will not be allowed. Other symbols like only basic characters. It is going to deal only with the basic characters and not with the just like so-called the ASCII domain name. So we are not going to permit this. We are not going to permit this. We are not going to permit special symbols into this, right? Okay. rare and absolute characters. In only specific case we will be permitting that. Okay, rare and absolute characters which have been added to code charts to accommodate rare forms, especially long vocalic r and long vocalic l, that is lu and ru, as well as their matras forms are there. In some languages such as Marathi, the short vocalic l is permitted, which means that this character is permitted, while these are not permitted. Okay, used as especially matra. This will be permitted for Marathi. So now, as I said to you, so the character permissibility also depends upon the language under the question. Okay, so for Punjabi we will have some specific rule, for Marathi we will have specific rule, for Hindi we will have specific rule, for the Konkani we will have specific rule, and so on and so forth. So there is a general rule and then there is a language rule. Okay, so that's how the structure has been there. Stress markers will not be allowed. So this is not allowed because it may get identical, confusingly similar with your quotation mark. Okay, so if you look at this Swarita and if the font is different, then it might get confusingly similar with something called matra, not matra, this quotation mark. So these are not going to be permitted. And as I explained to you, the zero-witch joiners and non-joiners are absolutely not permitted, because what you see on the screen right now, the word Maharashtra, actually you will never notice because they are looking same. All of them are same. This Maharashtra is same, this is same, this is same. For the end user, it looks the same. But this Maharashtra, the first one, is without zero-witch joiner and non-joiner. Okay, while the second one is with the zero-witch joiner after ha. Okay, and since it is an invisible character, it is not being displayed to the end user, and this is the challenge over there, and that's why we are not going to permit zero-witch joiner and non-joiner. Only visible characters which are there are supposedly to be as a part of the repertory. Only visible characters. Okay, then Maharashtra with zero with joiner after ma. So there is in this after ma there is a non-joiner which we are unable to see. But if you open up the Babel pad and try to see the encoding, you will find these zero-witch joiners and this. We call these as a ghost, which are sitting over there. Okay, which we don't notice. So directive principles are three principles from the foundation of the policy: ABNF formalism and the language specific restriction rules to ensure a well-formed Brahmi syllable, language tables which will ensure that only those characters pertinent within a given language are used, and variant tables to reduce the risk of spoofing and phishing. So these are the, actually in a crux, these are the directive principles, and each will be taken up in the following slides. Because of time shorts, I think I'm going to little bit skip some of the things fast basically, and maybe it is 13:19, so I will just I hope it's just 10 minutes, right? So if you make up the language keyboard on and try to write Google as a spelling, just like you type in English, you will get this weird characters. Okay, so this is Google. By selecting the keyboard as a Devanagari or Hindi, and you type Google just like you type in English, so Google. So this is actually, so this is a very weird thing which is appearing into the, so you cannot have google.com like this basically. Okay. So this is the ABNF formalism. So this is not a proper formalism. So this is not a proper syllable structure which has been formed, and this is what we were trying to mention you, that we require a proper syllabic formation rules. Then there are restriction rules which are there, like Hindi, all the nukta possibles will be identified to ensure that no other character will be attached with nukta. So generally what happens, the nukta character, see, while entering, if the system is not proper, then you can attach nukta to any character, and which we have seen. Okay, but then in that case not all Hindi characters will have a nukta. Okay, so in this case valid nukta characters are only this, where in Hindi only nukta characters are applied to ka, kha, ga, ja, fa, da and da, and not others. So we will be restricting the, actually these are the invalid combinations. So if you look at a Brahmi syllable formation rule, then these are invalid combinations which are going to happen. Okay. Okay. The most interesting part of the I got actually very couple of slides, but then time restrictions are there, so I will just talk about this and finish here, and maybe some other stuff over there. So this is the actually the total ABNF which we have designed fully. Okay, so this is the consonant syllable structure which is there. So it is star K into bracket C N H C N H and H D B X. So these are all notations which are there. So these are all ABNF operators which are there. So the pipeline operator is the alternative, so one can use this or that. Then under the square bracket we have got something called the optional. A star says it's a variable repetition, and the circular brackets talk about a sequence group. And this is the basically elaboration. So dash is a hyphen. Digits are, as I said to you, we are going to use digits 0 to 9. And now these are the abbreviations. C is consonant, V is vowel, M is matra, then D is anuswara, bindi, tippi and sunnu. Okay, bindi, tippi basically probably is being used in even no, Adak is being used in Punjabi, right? Then B is Chandrabindu, Anunasika, Arasunu, X is Visarga, H is Halan, A is Atak, N is Nukta, Y is Avagra, Chillu, Khandatta and so on. This is the actually a generic ABNF which is actually which is needs to get validated when somebody applies for the domain name. So this is in a nutshell a generic ABNF which is the structure which has been derived basically at a general level. Okay, so the validation engine which is there at the back end, whenever somebody applies for a domain name, it goes through this particular validation engine and then try to figure out whether it is a permissible what is called the domain name or not. So this is the generic ABNF. So just to give a small example that we saw K is 3 times, which necessarily mean that in Hindi a syllable can be formed by using maximum 4 characters. So K is 0 to 3 and not more than that. Okay, so maximum permissible number of consonants to form a syllable in Hindi is 3, that is 4. 0 to 3 is 4. Then bindi and anuswara, they don't exist. This combination doesn't exist. And then nukta can be only allowed for these characters and not for any other character. So these are now language wise specific restriction rules. So what you saw in the previous slide was the generic ABNF. Now the generic ABNF will also have now a language specific restriction rules. Okay, same thing, these are not valid combinations. So one cannot have halanta or so called as anuswara or so called as chandrabindu or so called as visarga or so called as matra prior to getting a domain name. So this is an invalid domain name. Okay, halanta is also not permitted after V, D, V, X, M. Okay, V basically vowel, D is anuswara, B is chandrabindu, then the X is visarga and M is the matra. So one cannot have a domain like and halan, ko dot halan. We cannot have that. Okay. I think I will just skip some of the points basically because so as I explained to you, these are the type variants. So homographic variants. So we are not currently looking at homophonic variants. So homophonic variants. So even .in registry distinguish between color and color. So if you get a website something called the www.color.com or .in, or you get a color. They are 2 different websites because for an end user the spelling is different and they are able to distinguish that the spelling of color and color is different. Same thing happens with the localization, a spelling localization. Suppose somebody takes a localization.in as a website. So localization is written in 2 different ways. One is a ZATION and SATION. But the ASCII domain name rule says that if they are what is so called they are rendered differently and they appear differently onto the screen, then they should be treated as a 2 different domain names and not the singular one. So we have now restricted ourselves, not going to the similar sounding or alternate spelling. So here in this case, Hindi and this Hindi will be two different domain names. So somebody takes Hindi with bindi.bharat and Hindi with na alanda. Maybe tomorrow, not today, maybe tomorrow when the domain names are fully operational and people starting giving feedback, we may add these restrictions or we may try to permit, because there are lot of issues when we talk about somebody take a domain name Pradhan Mantri.bharat. So Mantri can be written in two different ways. It can be written with 3 just like that, or no with bindi, or just like no including that, and no and throw. That is how the things are there. And then there is no case variant in Indian languages. Homograph variant. So our study and the current policies are just talking about the confusingly similar characters. So which necessarily means that in Unicode, if you look at a Unicode the whole stuff, then there must be something more than 1.5 lakhs of confusingly similar characters, and hence we talked about restricting the domain names for Indian languages to that particular code page of that language, and that too not permitting some of the special symbols into that. Okay, and that is how it becomes a robust system. Just a last example to give you that mudra.bharat. So if you look at this mudra.bharat, actually I have put it in a very bigger font, but if you put it in on the address bar, then this for an end user will look same, but it is not same. Actually this is the mudra, so it is a the halantara, which is a dra. Okay, it is a dra and not okay, it's a mudra, which is a valid one, while this is the mugna. Okay, it is a the halant na, which means that this is no. Okay, it's a no, but at a smaller point size, and this is with go, so it is the halant go, which is the go. So which means that at a smaller point size, all these things are going to look like a confusingly similar characters, and this is how we define homography. And there was a special study which was been undertaken not across the scripts, Indian language scripts, but within Indian language. So this is a within Indian language. So this is within the Hindi or within the Devanagari. You can find this variant table. So this is the homographs are there, as well as the variant table which was being designed developed, which necessarily means that suppose somebody applies for mudra.bharat with the dra combination, then automatically this variants will be blocked or be given, which necessarily means that if somebody purposefully even try to fish you out like the halanta na and try to be similar to mudra, then he or she will not be able to do, just because of that fact that this variant table, by the way of the variant table, this will be blocked. Okay, please try to understand this is a very, very important decision which has been taken in terms of homograph variants. Okay, these are Telugu variants. Okay, Punjabi variants. Okay, if you look at the Punjabi variants, so the this character can be written with these are two characters together. One is the nukta, and this is the characters. Okay, so if you go this the and so on and so forth, and you have also got in the Unicode Punjabi character coding, you have got a separate encoding for this. Okay, so this is how what is going to happen. So this is called the normalization. So when the normalization rule will apply over here, otherwise somebody will try to get a domain name with these two character combination and try to appear and fish with this character. So this is a whole variant table which has been designed developed. Then we are not going, as I said, we are not going to consider the valid homophones or common misspelling like India, and so on and so forth. I explained to you color and color.com are two different things at this moment of time. And okay, I think I'm time out. So this is just a, can I take 5 more minutes? Hello? Hello?
Hello. Yes, sir. Mr. We may continue. Yes, sir. You may continue.
Can I take 5? Yeah, can I take 5 more minutes? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sure,
Yes,
sir.
Okay. So this is the for Marathi. So for each language we have come out with the so-called this ID and policy tables, which has got a ABNA formalism. It has got a restriction table. some examples are being given, nomenclatures are being given, variant tables are being given, and who are the experts which are being consulted. So we have actually got a good help from Punjab University. GS Leal participated into that, and he actually helped us out for doing Punjabi tables and so on and so forth. So what yellow you see over here, yellow characters which are yellowed out. So this is the Hindi, this is the Devanagari Unicode code page, but you can see these are being now marked as yellow, and these cannot become a part of your domain name. So these are restrictions which have been applied, that these cannot be a part of a domain name, and that's why the policy or the application programming interfaces or APIs or the software what we have developed has to take care of all these nuances prior to actually saying that whether it is a valid or invalid domain name. Okay, summing up, the IDN policy will therefore need to have generic rules in compliance with .n registry, rules specific to IDN, ABNF formalism, language tables, along with the code chart and a clarification of the same in Unicode terminology, and variant table to reduce the risk of spoofing and phishing. Okay. Details of ABNF, these are highly technical details. I may not like to go through that because the time is not there, but as I can show you so this is the components of syllable is consonant, vowels, matras, vowel modifier, halan, nukta. I will come to basically I'm not sure whether should be able to show that. Okay, so this is the Punjabi example. Syllable with adak only exists in Punjabi language. Okay, so if you look at this A, C, then these are all what is called that optional. Then D, X, M. So this is basically adak. A stands for adak, C stands for consonant, the D stands for anuswara, bindi, tippi, sunna, then M stands for matra, then the D stands for anuswara, bindi, tippi, and X stands for visarga. Okay, so this is how the syllable with adak only exists in Punjabi. So this is the rule. Okay, what you can see, which is the language specific rule for Punjabi. Okay, so this is the AC combination, which is a combination of adak as well as a consonant. Then this is the ACD combination, which is the adak, consonant, and the anuswara, bindi, tippi, something. Then ACX, again it is the adak, consonant, and visarga, like this, visarga is there. ACM, which is the adak, consonant, matra. ACMD, which is the adak, consonant, then matra, and then bindi, tippi, and so on and so forth. So this is the example which I wanted to give you to for Punjabi language. I got many slides, but I will just skip those now. Anybody requires in detail, I can talk to them. So this is a main chart for all the languages, which are the characters, which are the basically things which can be permissible. So if you look at Punjabi, then there is the bindi. B doesn't exist. So B is Chandra bindi, Anunasika, and Anuswara. Okay, while adak is there, while adak doesn't appear anywhere. And then we have got a N is nukta, while Y, L, and Z. Y actually is a avagra, which is not present in Punjabi. L is a Chillu character, which is present in Malayalam, and Z is a Khandata, which is present in the Bengali. So this is in a nutshell the language restriction rules which are there. Okay, just get a small example of Punjabi just to wind up. Maximum permissible number of consonants to form a syllable will be up to 2. So that is K is equal to 1. Unlike Hindi can accept 4. Okay, 0 to 3. While in Punjabi only consonant depth is 2, right? So this is any consonant plus halan. So this is the example. The halan shall be permitted only with the following. Okay, so this is how the halan is permitted. Okay, any consonant plus halan will produce this. Any consonant plus halan is produced. So these are 0, 4, 8. Okay. Adak shall not be permitted either at the beginning or the end of the word. Adak cannot follow halan, visarga, or bindi, tippi. Tippy will be used in the place of bindi if the preceding character is one of the following. So this is how it is going to happen, and nukta can be only allowed after these particular characters. Okay. And in effect, this is the restriction, Punjabi restrictions rule. So this was the intermediate ABNF which I explained to you, and this is the ABNF for Punjabi with the restriction rules which are being applied. So this is in a nutshell a Punjabi ABNF. Okay. I think I stop here because just last but not the least. Okay, so this is what was being designed developed. One can have the domain names by going to Nixie or any registrar, and now you can have a domain names in all Indian languages including Sanskrit. So I hope you have enjoyed this presentation. I stop over here because there are other slides in terms of how the language engine is there, then the port and browser behavior and so on and so forth, that I will skip. Now you can have a domain name basically .bharat in Devanagari, .bharat in Bangla, .bharat in Telugu, .bharat in Gujarati, .bharat in Urdu. This is India, it's not .bharat. So it is India in Tamil, then this is .bharat in Gurumukhi, then .bharat in Kannada, Malayalam, Assamese, Oriya, Kashmiri, Sanskrit is Bharatam, and Santali is Bharot, and Sindhi. Okay, so this is how things are being given, and now we plan actually to also translate and try to get ideas for this edu, gov, in.com and so on and so forth. So edu we wanted to translate as a Vidya, gov, so we can have, suppose let us say a government department is there, they wanted to have a domain name like nic.gov.in, so nic.gov can become sarkar.bharat, so something .sarkar.bharat. So this is how the plan is there, and it is going to take some time, but currently .in is already there, that .bharat are already open up, so you as a university you can apply for that and you can get that. Okay, and thank you. I stop here. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for patience.
Thank you, sir.
Hello.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you, sir.
Hello.
Hello.
Sir, my question is, hello.
Any questions, please? Start with your questions.
Sir, I am Dr. Sarbjit Singh from Khalsa College, Patiala, Punjab. My question is, how it is possible the all languages of India is working as same pattern? The sensitive simplification is major problem of all languages. How it is working that in the future era?
Can you repeat again, because probably just to can you repeat again?
Hello.
Am I audible?
Hello.
Am I audible?
Dr. Sarbjit, you are audible. Please ask your question. Yeah, you are audible. Please ask your question.
Sir, my question is,
yeah,
how it is possible the Indian languages are very different type of sensitive simplifications? How it is possible in the future time NLP is work very seriously to play the role of single language in all our platform, as well as you working there in NLP? It is possible?
See, from the script side, as I said to you, we will continue using different scripts, and we try to actually put them together, bind them together with this Brahmi syllable rule framework, which is called the script grammar type of rules which are been there. So on the script side, I am not sure whether in future we are going to look at a really required. That is the second question. There will be different angles to it, a technical angle, political angle, social angle to this. I don't see in near future that this is going to happen. This is one part on the script side. So script will depend. Secondly, it is always better that because it will preserve our culture, heritage and everything. and people are still today trying to encode more and more scripts into the Unicode so that they come into the digital platform. So their language gets a digital footprint. So, as I explained to you, the Moody, which was 350 years back, which has been used, and currently there are very few people who are using Moody as a script and understanding also. And then now it is restarted now. A lot of work is restarted on that. So it is a cursive writing of the script, and I don't think we should actually do away with our culture and heritage. So this was a one thought, as a personal thought, which comes to my mind. Secondly, in terms of the NLP complexities which are there, I think Indian languages have, on the grammar side, Indian languages, same thing like script side as I explained. So there is a binding, which is a syllable formation rule, and then we got some language specific, what is called the augmented backosmotic formalism, which we created. Similar way, it may be likely tomorrow that if we are able to use the interlingua for most of the NLP stuff, then we can bind them with one singular NLP framework. But obviously, it is not going to happen that way, because language specificities will be definitely there. So I don't think in near future this singular approach probably I have not done that much of study on that, but probably it is currently difficult to achieve. Okay, that's I hope that
answers
your
question.
question.
Thank you.
Dr. Sarpreet, I think you have asked about word sense disambiguation. So word sense disambiguation, basically word sense disambiguation, that is not related to, we can say, this internationalization of domain names, because if you have thought of keeping one domain name of your website, fine, so that you know that what it means, right? And we have .in, .edu, something. So they are a fixed number of some top level domains. So they will be having some own meanings, like we have Bharat, Bharatam, like that. Fine, Sanskritam. So they are the different things. And you are talking about machine translation and all for the word sense disambiguation.
Top level domain, just to add value to this, now there are, apart from the 8 earlier top level domains, one can have a generic top level domain also, but the costing is very high. So if you are a Tata company, then you can take a .tata as a domain name. .sbi has already been taken up, so which necessarily means that now the domain becomes a fraternity for everything. So which necessarily means that all your businesses can that domain name, which necessarily means that you can have .sbi has already taken a top level domain name, and now the challenge here is that to run the top level domain .sbi as well as to have a internationalized top level domain of SBI, and there is so we are forming a rules at that level also in regards with this. Okay. Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. Myself Shailaja Mahadappa. Sir, you explained about phishing. My question is, how can we differentiate fake and legitimate messages? I am asking this question because when I was working abroad, one of my colleagues, Professor R.S. Kudmenchi, he was from the Department of Physics, Kulkarni University in Karnataka. He had a problem. He got a message, sir. He could not discuss with others also, and he thought it was a real, and he processed for that. He lost a lot of money, then wealth, and at last he died also. So my question is, how can we differentiate whether it is a fake or a legitimate message?
Actually, if you really look at it, it is really difficult by just visualizing that it is a fake website or is it a true website. Because I will give an example, the PayPal example I have given it to you, paypal.com and pay1.com at a smaller point size, or even if the font changes, they look similar. So here in this case, it is very visually, unless otherwise you are able to distinguish visually properly, I think it is a really complicated process. However, there were certain attempts made in terms of CDAC has developed already something called a plugin. It sits on your browser, and wherein you can identify that whether it is something called a malformed or are using confusingly similar characters and so on and so forth, and appearing to be the what is called the proper website. I give an example of that Mudra. So generally what happens that if you are in doubt, this particular plugin can actually spew out that we found similar websites like this. Please ensure that you click the right one. The idea here is that if you really look at it, I also gave a lecture on this particular portion in terms of how to avoid phishing and spoofing. But in this case, any message coming to you, any link coming to you, I think one should not blindly click on that. One should retype that whole message, because if the message is coming from just like paypal.com and you just it is embedded in your message and you click on that, it will take to your fish website. And some tools might help you, but not all tools will help you to do that. So some care has to be taken by the individual also. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions? Anyone wants to ask any questions from the participants?
Hello.
Hi, yes.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, Vishal here. Sir, during the presentation you uses the statement that upper part of the ASCII 8 bits is used by the IBM.
Yeah.
Sir,
IBM in the sense when they developed the IBM PC.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So see, you can have either 8-bit system or a 16-bit system. Okay. So earlier it was a ASCII encoding. In that ASCII was extended ASCII. It is called the extended ASCII. So one is called the base ASCII, which is a 7-bit, and an extended ASCII, which is called the 8-bit. So if you look at 2⁸, which become 256 characters, right? Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Getting.
Yeah, 2⁸ becomes 256 characters which are permissible into the 8-bit ASCII system. So if you look at the 7-bit, then you will get 127 code points which are already used by the base system, which necessarily mean that you have got the control characters, you have got A to Z, you have got punctuation marks and so on and so forth. Okay. While for IBM they use that 8-bit, the upper half of the ASCII, which is 128 characters, which they received to have some line drawing characters.
Right, sir.
Okay. Earlier systems were not graphics. Okay. So if somebody wants to show a box, a rectangular box, so they have used some of this upper half of that PC. IBM 8-bit what is called the extended ASCII to encode this particular line drawing characters and so on and so forth. You can just go and search for that, you will find those line drawing characters, but they are proprietary in nature, which necessarily means that suppose somebody just like ISCI, 8-bit ISCI, what we start using that as a bilingual and a monolingual. In a bilingual, we use the upper half of the ASCII, so which means that it conflicts with that. So that's a proprietary. So IBM used the proprietary one, right? Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I think we should stop taking the questions. So Dr. Saab must also have been tired. So Dr. Manju Sood, can you please conclude the session?
Yes, sir. Sure, sir. Thanks, Dr. Kulkarni. The talk delivered by you was very informative, insightful and useful, and you made use of very good examples to clarify the concept of IDN, and you very clearly told us how IDN are generated, what are the policies for the IDNs, and what are the challenges we face in case of IDNs. So you started with very simple language, but in a very easy manner you explained us so interesting topic which was otherwise very new to some of the participants. Not, I don't say for everyone,
okay,
but some of the participants it was new. So it was really very well understood by all the participants. I think they have learned a lot from you, sir. Thank you for being with us. Thanks a lot, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for sparing time and giving the very informative talk. Thank you, so nice of you. Thank you very much.
Everybody, thanks a lot. Thank you. Bye bye.